Hello, everybody. This is Eli James, and today I'm going to be reviewing a tournament that I played last Sunday on Full Tilt Poker. It was the biggest play money tournament of the week, the 1 million buy-in Sunday Major. I took fourth out of 197 entrants and thought that it would be a good idea for me to go over the hands and strategy and my thought process and just give you a little insider's view. So let's jump right into it. I registered late. The blinds start, I believe, at either 10:20 or 15:30, probably 15:30. I registered when they were 40-80. So I wanted to originally get to 50-100 because that's when the antes kick in. But 40-80 is when I registered. So I'm only going to show hands where I invested money into the pot so that, I don't have to go through all the hands that I just folded. Nothing happened. So first hand I played is obviously a pretty good one. And we're in the big blinds. So I like to make it 3x plus the open limp is what I typically will do for, for a standard raise. So I make it 400 calls. Flop is 4 king 3 all clubs. I do have the ace of clubs, so he can't have the nuts. Sometimes his range will have king x, but a lot of the times I'm just going to get a fold here. And I don't think that he's going to take too many stabs on this board with much of his air. Given that he called out of he limped and then he called the raise, he could have a super wide range. So I'm going to make a half pot bet. Might get called by a 4. Definitely get called by a king. If he has king queen with the queen of clubs, might even raise. So I think half pot is good. He folds and we take it down. Next hand we have kings here and make it 500. This guy shoves, and typically in play money games and maybe some low stakes real money games, players will do this in the early levels. They'll spaz out when you make a large raise, or you disrespect their big blind or something like that. We call off and he just has complete garbage, and luckily we dodged those outs. Jacks, I like to make the same sort of 3x plus the open limps. When people are limping a whole lot, it's good to get extra value from your made hands and punish them pre-flop, especially if they're going to call really wide. He jams over the top, and he did complete in small blind. Okay, so he limped, and then he jams over our raise. Typically, when someone limps and then jams over your raise, typically that's indicative of a hand like 6s through 10s, and ace queen and ace king. All of which we're ahead of. If he had queens, kings, or aces, most of the time he's gonna make his own squeeze there. So we're gonna call it off. He has 8s, and we hold up. Okay, I decided to limp here instead of raising. Typically in real money games I would raise here, but the table that I was on typically didn't raise themselves. So it basically gave me a cheaper price to see flops with. And ironically, this guy makes the raise here. And we decided to fold. Pot odds were getting 3-1. It's close. But in the early levels, especially when the antes aren't that big, I think folding is okay here. Making pretty standard raise. You can make it 3x, min raise. I decided to make it somewhere in the middle. Cutoff calls, and we flop a gut, 2 overs and a gut shot. Typically I'd c-bet here if I was heads up versus just one opponent, but since I'm facing 2 players with their ranges that are fairly likely to have a queen or a jack, I don't think that I'm getting much better to fold, save for, say, pocket 8s or 9s. So I decided to check, and he does bet pot. And since I'm getting 33%, I don't know. I don't think that I'm good often enough here. Or I don't think that my equity is close enough. Okay, so we have queens. Make the same kind of raise. When we played that hand very passively, it's good to make the same sort of movements when you were weak as when you were strong. Okay, we flop 2 overs, and we're blocking a lot of their queen jack, king queen type of gutters and open enders that are going to be calling here. So typically, their range is more weighted towards 10s, 10-9, 9-7, sometimes jack 8 suited, which would be really bad for us, but obviously that's hard to come by. So we're going to make half pot size bet. Ufku calls, and we turn the set, which is not too bad. King Jack does get there. Jack 8 already got there. If they somehow have Queen 10, that's really, really good for us because they're probably going to raise on this turn with Queen 10. Yeah, I think this is just a standard bet. Too often, if we check and try a slow play, unless they have 2 pair, they're not going to bet, and giving them a free card on so many rivers are just going to be bad. Like an 8's bad for us, a jack's bad for us, a king's bad for us, so a 6 is bad for us. So I definitely like betting here and getting value out of straight draws, middle pairs, things like that. It's a very interesting river. Obviously, it's really, really bad. However, I mean, what kind of kings would play this way? I said probably King 10, King 9 suited, King Queen would probably play this way. Other than that, it's not too likely. Like you probably have a 10 here, and the only king that they could have with the 10 obviously would be King X. So there's 3 King X, 3 King 10 combos available. So it's not really likely. And I don't want to check here and give them an opportunity to bluff with a ton of their range. So I feel like betting 1.5k here and then folding to a raise was better than checking and bluff catching, or probably just folding the river. He calls and he shows up with ace jack. So if we had checked there, he would have checked behind and we wouldn't have gotten as much value. Queen 10, limp here, given the fact that the table is pretty passive. We flop trips, check, check, and it goes check, check. At this point, they pretty much don't have much at all, although I feel like all in all would have bet if he had nothing. But it checks around and he does show up with ace high. So he did take the showdown value, although with having an overcard and backdoor flush draw, I probably would have bet that. It's not likely that I have a queen. Complete getting 6.8 to 1, where obviously our equity is definitely good enough to call there. But when they make the raise like that, definitely have to fold. We're only getting 2.4 to 1. Our hand's definitely not that good. And pretty sick hand there. Okay, here we're just going set mining. Again, this is a different new table, but table's been fairly passive. He does make, Sooner Fan does make the raise here, but we're getting pretty good pot odds. We're getting 4 to 1 plus implied odds. So we're definitely going to call there. We don't hit no set, no bet. 7-6, we're getting 7.2 to 1. We have to call there. And we obviously don't fold anything or flop anything, so we just check fold. Here again, going more set mining. And we don't hit our set. We hit something a little bit better. Although I would prefer, of course, to see it come 5 ace 5. But, when you're complaining about flopping quads, your life must be pretty good. So I don't think anything. I don't think anything is better than calling here. Most of the time, he's going to have air, and raising is going to put him in a really awkward spot. Obviously, we want him to try and catch up. If the ace peels on the turn, it's good for his range, and he might continue. King is good for his range as well. We definitely want to check and just let him bet, bet, bet. I don't really see any point in leading out. The straight draws that we have, 4-6 already got there, and 4 deuce is probably calling to a river bet unless it's like a substantial amount. So I feel like checking here would be best, and he shows up with ace high. Okay. Jacks, definitely going to make the raise here. Normally, I would see bet, I guess, against less people, but out of 3 opponents that called a decent raise pre-flop, it's fairly likely that one of the players has a king. Against, I guess, 2 players, I would feel more comfortable making a c bet, given that the board is wet enough that enough draws can call. So I decided to check, and it goes bet raise, so we dodged that bullet there. Pretty sure someone had a king. Yeah, oh, that's sick. Okay, make the raise here in the cutoff. We have okay. So we get 3-bet here. In the cutoff, my range is going to be looser, of course, than most, given that I'm in more late position. However, this guy's stack is pretty small, so when he makes a 3-bet, I'm inclined to believe that his range is stronger than it should be. I don't recall him 3-betting me too often. I think this is the first time that he had done it. I could 4-bet jam. I would not be mad at anyone that decided to 4-bet jam with ace-king suited here. We do block aces and kings, but I feel like most of the time when he calls to our 4-bet jam, he's just going to show up with queens or jacks, and we're going to be flipping for a third of our stack, a little bit less than a third of our stack. And at this point in the tournament, I didn't really feel like doing that. So I decided to call. 7-7 deuce flop comes. He bets about half pot. I feel like he has an overpair at this point. It's hard for him to have ace queen. There's only 3 ace queen combos remaining. I just feel like he has jacks at this point. And I don't see any point in raising, because I don't think, even if he has a hand like 5s or 6s, I don't think that's gonna fold, because he's already invested so much money in the pot. I don't feel like he's not pot committed. So I decided to fold. And we get queens, and we decided to squeeze over the limpers and take it down. We call, getting 4.5 to 1. We have to call here. Our hand is definitely going to be more than 18.2%. So by calling here, we're going to make money in the long run versus his hand. Flop the open ender. She goes check, check. I feel like he would have bet. Sometimes he'll have a 9 here, and he's just checking, for showdown value. I think that betting here might get a 9 to fold. If he doesn't have a straight draw to go with his 9, he's gonna, be in a pretty awkward spot on diamond rivers, 10 rivers, jack rivers, ace rivers. So I think betting here about half pot gets plenty of his range to fold. Again, making when players are limping and you have a made hand, it's always better to squeeze, unless it's probably something like a small pair, in which case it might be better to set mine. And the guy jams over the top. He makes it 6. It's like he's shoving about 35 big blinds. He did limp over the top. Okay, he's under the gun. Yeah, he under the gun limp and then jams over it. Again, indicative of that eights hand that we called against with jacks earlier. His hand's going to be weighted towards hands like ace queen, ace king, and something like sixes through jacks. He shows up with ace queen, and we're flipping for a huge amount. I think this was the chip, just about the chip lead at the time, and we hold up. So that was a huge pot for us. We're sitting at about, I think, 80 big blinds at this point. It's 400 times 80. Yeah, 32,000. And I could raise here, but again, like if this was a bounty tournament, I would definitely raise here because this guy is super short. We flop top pair and decided to bet, and this guy does call. He's going to have a lot of sevens, fives, the gutters 6-8, 6-4. We beat open ender 3-6, 8-9, 8-10, queen 9 sometimes. We'll peel here. Not the greatest of turns. However, for him to have a king here, he has to have king jack. We're blocking that. There's only 2 combos left. He has to have king 7 and king 5. But a lot of the time here, just so much more often, he's going to have a straight draw. Because we don't block any of the straight draws, so it's more likely that his hand's weighted towards that. I decided to bet, and we get the call. River king is perfect because it makes it way less likely that he does have a king. I decided to bet in case he has a 7. Sometimes he'll hero call me with ace queen because I might 3-barrel here with a straight draw. He does fold, so he probably had the straight draw. Decided to limp and getting 6 and 0.8 to 1. He raises, and obviously getting 2 to 1, we're not that good. Decided to complete, getting pot odds. We flop a 7, and when it goes bet call here, I'm probably just going to fold. Players have been pretty tight lately, and I don't expect both of them to have worse hands than mine. We have king queen. We raise in position, or we raise here, and I don't know. I'm pretty sure. I mean, he can have a lot of ace x here, and I feel like if he has ace x that isn't ace king or ace queen, that we're about 40% or so. So it's close, but I think given enough the times that you add in the times that he's 3-bet bluffing with like 7-8 suited or, king x blockers, I think it's close enough. Unfortunately, that hand does not go our way. I decided to jam here. It's about 20 big blinds, or 30 big blinds, I say. So it's a pretty big jam. However, I felt like I didn't want to call and then check fold to a majority flops, or fold to a squeeze from here. Although I'd probably call him. This was honestly, I do think it was pretty spewy of me. This guy was raising a ton. So I did expect to take it down often enough. I'm not sure what he was doing. He does make a pretty loose call, honestly, and luckily we fade the outs. Limp getting 8.5 to 1. Always want to call when you're getting good enough odds, or you're just printing money to your other players, and we just fold. Okay, we make kings, and I make us raise over the top. This guy shoves, we call obviously, and unfortunately, some of the time you're going to lose when you have the best hand in an all-in pot. So we are sitting, that knocked us down to about 24 big blinds. Decided to check, don't see any really point in raising and bloating the pot with 24 big blinds. Goes check, check. I decided to check again, give him a chance to make a 1.5K stab. And here, just make a bet just in case he has anything. He has 8s. And we check, and we flop the second nuts. So we're good. It goes bet and raise. I see no other option besides jamming here. We can represent flush draws. If they have king jack, we might represent king 10. If they have ace queen, it's tough, but good game. You know what I mean? So I decided to raise, protect against flush draws as well as rep flush draws. So it's both the best of both worlds there. He calls off, and he does have, let's see, 8 outs because we have the 9 of diamonds plus 3, no, 2. Yeah, so he has 11 outs or 10 outs, I think, something like that. And we hold up. He folds. I decided to make the raise here. And I decided to jam because I felt like I didn't want to get check raised. This is probably too exploitable of a play versus good players. Excuse me about that. About good versus good players, I feel like this is too exploitable. But not too likely that he has a 10, and I just didn't feel like betting, and then he jams over the top, getting a good enough price with his bluffs, and then I'm in a really tough decision, calling off a quarter of my stack. He folds, and we take it down. That hand's definitely questionable, and I probably should have played it a little bit less scared. We're limp, set mining, don't hit or set, no bet. Okay. We're getting 8.8 to 1. We have to call. Guy min raises, and we're obviously getting 7.9 to 1. We call, and we flop trips, which is huge. Check, and the guy bets, folds, call, and I think calling here is a little too strong. I think it just looks too strong because against the bet and the call, am I really calling with 5-6 here, or am I really calling with less than ace-7? So I think a raise here is good because it is unlikely that either of those players has hit this flop, especially since I have a 4. But if I have nothing here, a raise looks pretty strong into a bet and a call. Plus it might arouse their suspicions if they have 8s or 9s. He calls, and he has like, a fourth of the pot, less than a fourth of the pot. So I think jamming here is the only option. He shows up with the one hand that beats me in this pot, and I'm drawing the 1 out, and unfortunately he doubles up through us. So we have about 22 big blinds. I think jamming here is okay because they're not going to be 3-bet jamming light too often. So when they do re-raise us, we pretty much have to fold. When they call, not a lot of flops are going to be happy for us. So I think picking up the dead money is a good choice here. I don't know why there's 2 buttons. Definitely not the button. So pay attention to that. So I didn't make a min raise with Queen Jack of spades, or hearts, sorry. He calls, and 8-10 gets there now, Jack 8 gets there, 6-8 gets there, and I don't think any of those hands are folding. So I think check folding is good right here. 10 is the only real card that we are super happy of seeing, although Queen Jack is, a queen is better than a jack, of course. Okay, call getting pretty good odds, 5 to 1. Flop the open ender on a paired board, and I decided to jam because I would be jamming with an 8 here some of the time. I would be jamming with a 9 here if I perceived him to be particularly tight and not likely to fold on this flop. Also, it's not likely that he has anything good. If he has like ace queen, he's in a really tough spot because he has to call about half his stack. And so I do think that we get a lot of better hands to fold here, and we also have pretty good equity. Of course, versus ace high, we have not only our 5 or our 10 would be good, but our 6 and 7 as well. He calls, and unfortunately, he shows up with jacks. And when you get called by a worse hand, my personal tip is to just hit it on the river. So I did the call, getting good odds, and didn't hit anything good. So we're just checking, check, check, and goes bet, bet, fold. Okay, ace, queen. Decided to make the min raise here. We have about 28 big blinds at this point, about 30 minus the min raise. And we flop top pair. I don't see any point in raising here. I guess the only hand that we could really get called by is ace jack, but ace jack is just bluff catching if we raise. And we don't have too many bluffs here, so they're going to play pretty straightforwardly versus a raise. Calling keeps their flush draws in there, keeps their air in there, and keeps any, if they have ace X, they're going to feel pretty comfortable. And 6 is obviously really, really good turn because it's hard for them to have trips. And they bet again, so now we call. They check. I don't see any point in betting here, honestly, unless we perceive our opponent to be super loose, which I didn't at the time, I don't think. So if we bet here, I mean, it's pretty transparent that we have an ace. Either that or we have a flush draw. When he checks here, he probably has a flush draw because it's pretty obvious that we have an ace. I mean, what other hands would play this way besides quads? So I feel like checking here is better because since it's pretty likely that we have an ace, when we bet, if he doesn't have an ace, he's going to fold. If he has quads, he's going to raise, and we're going to have to fold. So I don't think much better gets to call, and obviously nothing better or nothing worse gets the call, and nothing better gets the fold. So checking back there is good. Definitely min raise blind versus blinds. This guy hasn't been particularly fighting. We make the C bet half pot. He's gonna have so many hands here. He's getting when he's faced with the min raise, he's getting 4-1. So he's gonna be calling with a really, really wide range, most of which doesn't hit this flop, so we can take it down. Decided to make the raise. I did make a 3x raise on a fairly weak table where people are more inclined to call with a wider range. You can get away with making this big sizing with aces and kings. On a more confident table with better players, I would just stick with the min raise in the late stages of tournaments because that's what you're going to be doing with hands like king, queen, and king, jack. So we make the min raise with 7s. The guy jams with less than 20 bigs. So we always have to call, and he just shows up with deuce 3 suited, which is, I mean, obviously as it says, he's feeling angry here, so maybe he was tilting or something like that. And he flops the joint, essentially. We do have 3 outs, and obviously we just hit it because that's what we're supposed to do. Getting here, we're getting 3-1. I think this is pretty loose. However, I think, what do we have to call? Pause 50 Hornet. We only have to call 4,000. We have a pretty big stack here, probably 2 live cards. Actually, I don't think it's that loose. I'm sorry. I read the pot odds wrong. Yeah, we're going to be better than 25% majority of the time. Unfortunately, he has 6s, but yeah, you see we were at least 35%. We're probably flipping. We're flipping, so we're more like 40%. So by calling there in the long run, we're making money. Again, 39%, we're probably flipping here, and he just has the same hand. Chop it up. We're getting 27. Again, we're getting too good of a price to fold, especially in tournaments. When you have a chance to knock someone out and you're getting good pot odds, you must call because you're getting the pay jumps that go up. You know, you're going to knock someone out, get closer to the final table, you'll accumulate chips, etc., etc. And unfortunately, they hit their hand. Make a min raise with ace queen and prepare to go to war with pretty much anyone. Take it down. Call, and we flop top pair with the gutter. I decided to bet, get value from second pair and king queen, and check to give him a chance to bluff. And he does have the part of his hand that's made, or part of his range that's made. So I min raise on the button, jack eight of clubs, bet, and just fold. We're getting 38.2 to 1. I think that we're getting a little bit too good of a price to call. And we suck out. Min raise jacks on the button. He calls, check, and we bet, and calls, and he leads out. Now, normally I would be inclined to call here. However, we are tangling with a pretty big stack here, so excuse me. So I don't want to get too wild with the big stack, especially since we're nearing the final table at this point in the tournament. And if he had, if he has a flush draw here, I'm just gonna say, good bluff and just fold. So I don't see, he wouldn't play a 9 this way, he wouldn't play a 7 this way. So he's either repping 4s or nothing. And I just think it's too ambitious of a bluff, so I don't think he's going to be bluffing there. Min raise with ace king, take it down, check, we flop top pair, bet, call, and call. We turn our flush draw, we added equity, and goes check, check, and we win. Min raise 9s, not the greatest of flops, but we can still get some worse hands to call. And too much of his range is better than ours here, so I'm going to fold. Min raise 9s. We flop the world. I wanted to give them every opportunity to try and catch up to us. If they had anything, it would have connected with this board already. So now we make the bet, and unfortunately everyone folds. Yeah, I think we're getting too good of a price here to call. Or to fold. Yeah, and we hit we hit it there. Alright. Min raise on the cutoff with ace 9. Flop middle pair. Against a bet and a raise, I'm definitely folding here. Three, we're checking behind, and he checks, and I'm going to be betting with a jack, I'm going to be betting with a club, ace high, I'm going to be betting with pretty much 100% of my check back, my big blind range here. Calling with 9s, and yeah, definitely getting too good of a price to call. We're definitely going to be ahead most of the time here. And unfortunately he has jacks. He only had like 7 big blinds, so it's pretty unlucky that he had jacks there. I believe this is the final table, by the way. So I do call. And he leads out. I mean, we have to add an ace. Ace might not be good. King, and we might even get paid off if we hit our hand. So I did a min raise with queen jack. Check, bet, fold. Raise 8-6 suited. He bets, and this is one of the leaks that I have in my game, where when someone is donk leading a whole lot and I don't hit my hand very often, I'm not really sure how to proceed. I did check raise because I felt like if he had a stronger hand, he would have bet more to protect his hand. He folds and we take it down. We call and we get the gut shot and backdoor flush draw. We turn a pair, check, check, just to try and get value or from any of his bluffs. So we call it off, or we take it down. Min raise ace 9. I'm going to be min raising a ton on the button, so ace 9 is going to be weighted towards the more top end of our range. And I decided to make a bet again, or a raise again. He was, having the same sort of tendencies. He does call this time, so I'm inclined to believe that he has something. This is about 10 big blinds. Nash Equilibrium says Jack 10 off is more than good enough to jam blind versus blind with 10 big blinds is the effective stack. He calls, and he does have 3. We flop the jack, but river the flush, so we're chop chop. And yeah, definitely gonna fold there. I might want to raise here. I like making it 24,000, putting pressure on him and punishing him for open limping. So I do think I misplayed this hand, but we take it down anyway. But I think I definitely would have gotten more value by raising preflop. I'm gonna raise king jack. We bet, and he did check fold. So I mean, when he's limping, maybe, or when he's donk leading, maybe he has like a draw or just like bottom pair and isn't comfortable. And when he has nothing, he just wants to give up. So you go check, and he bets. This is a really sick spot because if he had like deuce four or 5-6 or a set of threes, why would he bet so much? If I had a king, or if I had a flush draw, or if I had a hand like aces, wouldn't it make more? To me, it would make more sense for him to bet small and maybe get me to induce a jam if I have aces, or a hand like ace king. So since he's betting so much, I feel like he's trying to protect against the draw. And when he's trying to protect against a draw, he's probably protecting with a hand that isn't that great. Like I would say, like a worse king. If he had a set or a straight, I think he would be less afraid of a flush. So I decided to jam and get the rest of the money in, and he shows up with the same hand. So chop it up. Min raise jack nine in the cutoff. I probably should have called here. Because I think with the bottom pair and a gut shot versus a guy that's donk leading, I think my poker tracker said he was donk leading like 60% of the time. So I think I definitely should have called there. And if he just made a bigger sizing on the turn, then I would, find out what he had, obviously. We jam those sevens, by the way. The player that's setting out and the guy that's fairly loose. I think this is like free money here. Decided to limp, and I decided to bet here. He's going to have 100% of his range when he's checking back in the big blind, so he could have literally anything. Board gets scarier for his range. Sometimes I'll be limping here, small blind versus blind with an ace, because he's not going to be 3-bet jamming too wide, and that limping might get him to induce with the raise. So this definitely is better for my range than it is for his range. So I like making a bet here again. He does think about it and call. And obviously I have to bluff this river. The board paired, so if he has a hand like... I can't think of... There's no two-pair combos that are counterfeited now except an underpair, I guess. But, well, underpair isn't even two-pair to begin with. Anyways, yeah, so no two-pair combos that got counterfeited. However, he's in a really bad spot with a jack. He's in a worse spot with a 10. And even an ace is pretty bad. If he doesn't have a club or a full house, it's super tough for him to call here. So I decided to jam and get the rest of the money in, or hopefully not, and luckily he folds. So yeah, this is a hand where even though I'm not blocking any part of their value range, it's just so hard for them to call unless he has the king of clubs or he has a full house. And given the action played, I don't think his range is going to be that strong. I would definitely want to min raise here. However, I felt like this guy was more inclined to donk lead if I had min raised. I like a call here some of the time. However, his stack is pretty short, so I'm more inclined to believe that he has something because he probably doesn't want to risk too much of his stack since he's only got, at the time, he only had like 8 bigs. So I min raise ace 8. Yeah, this is bad. I should just call. Or probably just continue with my strategy of limping so that he donk leads less. And I definitely want to check raise here. He's not going to have much most of the time, and we have pretty solid equity versus everything except a set. Raise king 10 and take it down. Check back. I decided to lead this time. And lead again. He's going to be calling super wide. He's been probably the loosest player at the table. Calling, getting good pot odds. I felt like his range was more weighted towards an ace. He did min raise, I believe. Yeah, he shows up with nines. Queen 7 suited, min raise. I would prefer probably to continue with my limping strategy to deter him from getting too aggressive with me. But definitely, this is the first time he'd ever check raised, so definitely folding there, obviously. Here is the last hand. This guy was sitting out, and I had more chips than him, so I theoretically could just fold every hand and take third place money, but I felt like in the long run I would make more money by trying to spin up my stack to a bigger amount and try and get second place money or even first place money rather than guarantee myself third place money and, almost guarantee myself that I won't see second place money. So with 11 big blinds over a min raise, three-handed, I definitely want to jam over the top. Unfortunately, he shows up with queens, and king doesn't happen. So, that was the tournament. Took fourth place in the 1 mil buy-in Sunday Major for 25 million play chips. That was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed making this video. Let me know what you think in the comments, what you might have done differently. If you think that this was helpful, please let me know. And if you would like to see videos in the future. All right, thanks, and I'll see you next time.